We'll go to another story that's dominating headlines, and that's the issue with the passengers who will be arrested, I believe, from next year, March 2015, if they refuse to wear seatbelts. Yes, they are very unhappy about it. So let's get the story first, and then we'll come to the studio and interview the CEO for the DVLA. The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority will soon begin arresting and prosecuting passengers who fail to wear seatbelts. The authority will also not register new vehicles without seatbelts from September 1 this year. The DVLA also intends to introduce an electronic generated roadworthy stickers. The Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Rudolph Beckley, joins us in the studio. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, we'll come to the current one, but what happens to the vehicles that we have in the system already? They've been registered. They have no seatbelt. What happens to them?
Thank you so much. When this issue came up, the DVLA met and came up with a framework for the effective implementation of this directive.
Okay.
We are looking at two categories of public service vehicles. We have given ourselves a deadline of the 1st of September to stop registering vehicles meant for public passenger transport. So once from 1st of September, when it comes with a vehicle meant for public passenger transport, it will not be registered without seat belts fitted on each seat in a vehicle. That is the first phase of it. The second phase is also to do with vehicles already in a road traffic stream that do not have seat belts. The DVLA, as part of the framework we have put together to actualize this particular requirement, is into the procurement of seat belts. We want to procure the seat belt from a recognized source so that we do not have all kinds and manners of seat belts littered all over the place. So we are involved in the procurement of seat belts. We are also involved in the identification of the garages that are meant or supposed to fit the seat belts. We are identifying these garages through the Ghana National Association of Garages. So we are into discussions with the executives of the Ghana National Association of Garages to identify the garages meant or that will be used for the fitting of the seat belts. After the identification, we're going to certify those garages and then train personnel of those garages to have the skills and know-how to appropriately fit seat belts in these particular categories of vehicles. So this second phase, we are looking at a deadline on the 31st of March to implement, by which time we will be in a position to have the seat belts ready, do the training for the identified garages, and ensure that those identified garages are certified before we proceed.
All right.
So this is the framework.
Okay, you've said a number of things, so let me just, take it step by step. So by September, any vehicle coming in without seatbelt will not be registered, correct?
Certainly, yes.
Right. But you're not going to set up all these chains, having the garages, having someone to procure. It means the drivers will have to get seatbelt for the cars that are already in the system without seatbelt.
Yes, certainly so.
How will they go about it? Some of them, even the states, they're deadly.
Yeah, the point is this, that like I said, the DVLA is actively involved in the procurement, not only of the seatbelt, but in the installation of the seatbelt in the various vehicles that we are talking about. Is the reason I mentioned just a moment ago.
Sure.
That we are going to identify garages. It's not everybody who will have that special skills to fit seatbelts. And if you're not able to fit the seatbelt correctly, the objective of the seatbelt will be lost.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is the reason we are so concerned with the fact that we must identify garages, provide training for them to have the skills and competencies to fit the seatbelts appropriately for us to have the benefits of. Now, wherever we are buying the seatbelts from, we are getting experts from that particular environment to come down to do the training for and on behalf of these garages to ensure that we have those skills to be able to do that. Once we firm that up, then we will now introduce the commercial vehicles to these recognized garages for them to be fitted. We will procure the seatbelt from a recognized source so that we don't have issues of fake or duplicate seatbelts. And we are going to do it such that we will be in a position to identify these seatbelts as coming from those recognized sources. The law LI 2180, which is giving us that environment to implement this directive, I'm talking about section 119 and section 120 of the LI 2180, prescribes that even coming up with the specifications of the seatbelts, we need to have it done in collaboration with the National Road Safety Commission. Okay. About 2 days ago, we met with the public transport service providers. Okay. I'm talking about the GPRTU, Proto, etc. And when we met, these were the issues that we talked about. Yeah. We cannot implement this directive without them being in the know. So we are doing it collectively to ensure that at the end of the 31st March, whatever the law requires, by stating to us that every vehicle that we deliver onto the road must have seat belts on each and every seat, we comply with.
Well, I'll come back to the question, but needless to ask, it would come at a cost.
Certainly,
for
yes.
the drivers.
Yes, it will certainly come at a cost. And
but why have we waited, till now? The law has always been there. Unless you're telling me the law was changed, let's say 3 months ago, and so you want to enforce it. Why have we waited till now? Is it that we are losing too many lives, or DVLA just realized that we haven't done our job well?
Very far from that. You're right that yes, the LI 2180 I talked about, the law,
yes,
was passed by Parliament in 2012. And it has as many as 195 provisions in that law. Now, in the case of the seatbelt, the law gives us the authority to give a grace period before implementation of the implementation of the seatbelt. So the grace period that the law gave was 2 years.
That's just a way of hiding behind the law, really.
Well, that is not it, because there are processes involved in the installation of a seatbelt. You don't just quickly implement a law when the seatbelt, this is not a seatbelt manufacturing country, and therefore you have to import a seatbelt. The processes for fitting and all that must be done in a manner.
But isn't it standard that if vehicles are coming into this country, those vehicles must have seatbelts, whether they are going to be used for commercial purpose or for private use? Isn't it standard? I mean, regardless of what the law says, regardless of whether it's supported it or not.
Do you believe that currently when you go into the road traffic stream, most vehicles, especially those who sit in the front seats, including the driver, most of them are always fastening seatbelt?
Absolutely.
Good.
Because they
have it. Yeah. Because they have it. But then the law does not only say that those front seaters, the law says that every occupant of the vehicle. And how do we make every occupant of the vehicle be strapped in a seatbelt when there is no seatbelt in the vehicles?
That's the frustration.
Correct. And it's the reason the law makes it abundantly clear that, look, when a crash occurs, there are 3 levels of collision. Let me lay emphasis on this.
Absolutely, please go ahead.
The first level of collision, which you call the primary collision, is when a vehicle collides with any object in a road traffic stream or collides with a vehicle. The secondary level of collision is when objects within the vehicle, including human beings, collide with each other. The third and the most unfortunate part, which you call the tertiary collision, is when the softer tissues of the human being knock against the harder tissues, and in a lot of instances it results in what? Internal bleeding. This particular third level of collision is what the seatbelt seeks to prevent, and is the reason every nation is emphatic on the enforcement of the law on seatbelt. We in Ghana, the law was promulgated or passed in 2012, and therefore the law thankfully gave that grace period for us to prepare ourselves, and therefore we are duty bound by law to implement it. Like I said, we cannot implement it without the active involvement of stakeholders. We have met with the transport operators, we have met with the police MTTD, the National Road Safety Commission. They are involved. I just talked about the framework. The framework we put together to actualize this requirement of the law has roles and responsibilities. Our role as a DVLA is to ensure that the procurement process, talking about what? The supply, installation, fitting, training, and certifying the people are done specially by us, and that is what we are embarking on.
Okay, the law enforcers, I'm glad you mentioned the issue of the over-concentration on driver and the passengers in the front seats strapped in seatbelts. And it's like police officers also look on, oh, the drivers in seatbelts were good to go. Now, I want you to go on Facebook and send me your thoughts on this very important subject. I mean, if you're going on a vehicle that doesn't have seatbelts, what will happen to you? And recently, the NDC lost 2 of their, I believe, deputy women organizers, and the reason why they died was that 2 of them didn't have seatbelts. The one in the front seat as a driver and the woman in the front seat who survived, Vivian, they had seatbelts on, and so when the crash happened, those at the back were flown out of the vehicle, and so they didn't survive. I'd love to read that. But Metro Mass Transport, huge. They go long distances, and the driver wears seatbelts, the rest nothing.
Good. Thank you so much, and I'm glad you talked about the excellence or the benefits of the seatbelt in just your narration. Looking at the Metro Mass Transit provides 2 kinds of service. We have what we call the intra-service and then the inter-service. Okay. The intra-service are those vehicles that provide services, for say, for example, Kaneshi to Odoko. Okay. Those are what we call the intra-service or the metro services. But those that provide long-distance services, you are perfectly right, and that is what we will seek to establish by the implementation of this law. That from the 1st of September, for the new vehicles, but from March, when we retrofit these seatbelts in all the vehicles, then the law enforcement agencies will now understand that the seatbelts have been provided and everybody will be duty bound to strap a seatbelt. The advantage of a seatbelt is what you need emphasis on.
Regardless, I think we're very much aware of the advantages. It doesn't matter whether it's a short distance or long distance.
Correct.
When you could be in front of your car and a car will hit you.
Correct. Now you are talking about the severity of injury on occasion of a crash. Now the higher the speed, the higher the level of severity when there's a crash. And therefore, seatbelts are meant to prevent the level of severity, like you rightly said.
My question has to do with your answer to the Metro Mass question.
Correct.
That the intra, those who are going from Odoko to Kaneshi.
Our focus is on the inter, because the inter is where the speed levels are so high. But if you're looking at the intra, where the speed levels are minimal, even in a crash, you realize that degree of severity of injury will not be as high as those on the inter. Let's take, for example, when you go to the UK, the buses that run Metro, you realize that 1,001 times you don't have the seatbelt because it's just a short journey and the speed levels are quite minimal.
Okay.
But then if you are in a vehicle running at a speed of 60 kilometers or 80 kilometers and above, it means that your body, that is part of the vehicle, has also assumed that level of speed. And if there's an impact at 60 kilometers and beyond, the impact in terms of injury is so high, and that is what we intend to.
Okay, so in other words, some vehicles will be exempted from it?
No, initially, yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, to say that, the BRT is coming on. The bus rapid transit system is coming on. And that is going to run on the Metro. Those who be having exemptions because of the speed levels on account of what the routes they fly.
But if another driver at Kaneshi says that I'm going to Odoko,
yes,
so I am not going to have seat belts in my car, that person will not be wrong.
No, that is not the issue. That's why I'm saying that some vehicles provide intra services and others provide inter services.
Okay.
And it's the reason we met with the public transport service providers to give us a breakdown of those categories of vehicles involved in the two kinds of services.
All right, and finally, on the electronic generator stickers, even before we get to that, what about passengers? They get to the vehicle doesn't have seat belts. It means that there will be some sort of shortage. What will happen there? If I get to a vehicle that doesn't have seat belts?
Yes, if you get on board a vehicle after the implementation of this directive, if you get on board a vehicle that doesn't have seat belts, I will encourage every passenger not to patronize the service of that vehicle. Looking at the
But what will happen? You go to Kaneshi, there's a long queue. The vehicles are not even there for them to get on to start.
You see, the point is that before they even come, the vehicles even come to load, they normally come to the DVLA for roadworthy assessment. Okay. And therefore, we will be able to pull them out of the traffic stream on account of the roadworthy that we will not give them. Yes.
Finally, the DVLA also intends to introduce an electronic generated roadworthy stickers. Why?
That's a very good question. We have observed time with that number that the roadworthy stickers we have currently, because of their design, a lot of fake ones are in the system. And as a result of that, we have developed an electronic one to overcome the level of fakeness of our roadworthy stickers. Okay. If you submit your vehicle, or if you do not submit your vehicle to the DVLA for roadworthy assessment, and we are not able to check the condition of the vehicle, and you go ahead to pick any roadworthy sticker, you are contributing to the dangers of the road. Okay. You and I can go on board that vehicle, and when a crash results, it can put us in danger. It's the reason we have come up with the electronic sticker to ensure that every vehicle that goes through our examination process electronically will have that electronically placed roadworthy sticker to reduce the level of faking of our roadworthy stickers.
Okay, Rudolph Berkeley is the CEO for the Driver Vehicle and Licensing Authority. We'll have you on Consumer Watch because consumers have a lot of questions for you, so you have to be here on Consumer Watch. So stay tuned to TV3 for all your questions on the DVLA. I know you have a lot when it comes to the roadworthy certificate. Sometimes you don't need to be an expert to even say that this car is not worthy to be on the road. Get your questions ready. We'll be on Consumer Watch this Sunday.